So I'm about to spill the tea in a very unhinged way.
Go for it.
So
welcome to Psychocinematic, a podcast where we analyse depictions of mental illness and disability in popular films and TV. I'm your host, Stephanie Fornasia. If you love our podcast and want to give us some support, make sure you're following Psychocinematic Podcast on Instagram, TikTok and Twitter. And check out our website, psychocinematicpodcast.com. For access to special bonus content, episodes, early access, stickers, and contribute to our regular fundraisers, join our Patreon. Starting from $3.50 a month, you can be the coolest psychocinematic listener there is.
So I'd like to start the podcast today by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're on today, which is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay respects to those elders past, present and future, and also acknowledge that I am on stolen land. And I'd like to welcome to the podcast Monica, or Mon. Do you prefer Mon?
Whatever's easiest. One's faster.
So Monica is a 21-year-old disability advocate based in Sydney who uses social media as a way to shed light upon Tourette's as well as disability awareness and ableism. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Mon.
Thanks for having me.
And I discovered you from a podcast that I absolutely love, Beyond 6 Seconds with Caroline Keel, which is how I came across yourself, and also your wonderful TikTok and social media. What was it like going on Beyond 6 Seconds?
Yeah, it was really fun. I reached out to Caroline because I saw it online too. And yeah, it was just I think my second podcast. It was really good to talk about, and yeah, I just all about having fun.
Yeah, fantastic. What was the first podcast that you went on?
It was my friend Vivian, so it was the Thriving Asian Women. So she talks about Asian female experiences.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Yeah, she just wanted me on for Tourette stuff.
Fantastic. I guess firstly, tell me a little bit about the work you do in disability awareness. When did you start working in that sort of space, advocating in that space?
Yeah, so it originally started off as I was discriminated against in Sydney, and it was a random first video because I was I need to put this on TikTok because at that time TikTok was exploding and it was a way people were spread using it as easy traction.
Mm-hmm.
So the video hit 750,000 to this day.
Whoa.
But yeah, as I posted that discrimination incident, it was 300 or 500K, and people were rushing to the account. So I was honestly I need to start making Tourette's content. Because for me, I've always wanted to make this content. I was talking to my therapist about it, but I was so insecure. Literally, being discriminated against was the reason why I started.
So it's almost it's disappointing that that's how it started, but it's also been a really positive outcome, do you think?
Yeah, the biggest blessing in disguise. It sounds so weird, but if it wasn't for that incident, I would not have this page. And more good has come out of it, we're here today.
And do you create content outside of your advocacy? You're a uni student, is that right?
I was studying a Bachelor of Arts, being an artsy girl. But yeah, I do a food blog. So before that, I've had a social media background. So I guess that kind of branched into this. So I was doing photography and videography for food businesses for the past 3 years. So that kind of gave me, I guess, that's a good question. I never noticed that. Yeah, that's
something you're naturally good at, it sounds like.
You kind of.
Great. So tell me a little bit. You have Tourette Syndrome. Do you mind telling me a little bit about what Tourette's is, particularly from your perspective as well? Because I'm a psychologist, so I'm aware of what Tourette's is, and I've done a little bit of reading. But tell me from your words what Tourette's is.
Yeah. So basically, it's a neurological condition that causes the person to have tics. And tics are repetitive movements and gestures that, people do repeatedly. And tics are very complex. So, yeah, basically, I like to think of it as a condition that makes you do, literally, Like, I hate this analogy, but technically you're like possessed. Like, I hate when other people say it, but it's like a good analogy.
Mm-hmm. It's beyond your control.
Yeah. It's like my evil twin. So it's like a second me that makes me do stuff that looks like me, but I'm actually not.
And what does it, like tics are involuntary movements, is there a difference in how often they occur? Is there any sort of, from what we know, reason why they occur?
Yeah. So everyone is different. Right now I would have, I don't know, 5 to 10 ticks a minute, but people can go days without ticking. They can go weeks without ticking. I think that's a misconception. Like, a lot of creators, they'll make a video and not tick, and then people will jump on and question, be like, why aren't you ticking here? Like, you're faking it, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there is that like difference.
Mm-hmm. Do we know why tics happen, or if there's a neurological process that's responsible for it?
For me, it is excitement, stress, even happiness, sadness. So it's very broad, but like just tense feelings or not being well rested. That's personal for me. But sometimes also when I'm sad, I don't tick. And with the like coprolalia, which is what 10% of people have, it's a swearing tic. With that is, I read somewhere, sorry, excuse my wording, but in your brain you have this bit that controls like social cues and swearing and stuff like that. And I read somewhere that if you have coprolalia, it's like that bit of the brain is more inflamed and leans up against the lobe responsible for social cues.
Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know about that sort of scientific basis of it.
Yeah, so literally upright, yeah.
And that's interesting that you mentioned that 10% of people with Tourette's have coprolalia, because as we'll talk about later on, a lot of the representation in film and TV of Tourette's is often around the swearing, particularly, and not a lot of the other sort of tics.
Yeah.
So when were you first diagnosed with Tourette's? Do you mind sharing a bit of your diagnosis story?
Yeah, so I've had it since I was 7, but I wasn't diagnosed till 9. And the GP that I actually still see, funny story, he diagnosed me with a cough. So like there was no awareness back then. But my story is basically really interesting. I was at school with this girl and would hang out. She's like my best friend back in the day. Would hang out doing play dates, and her mother actually went to high school with the president of the Tourette Association of Australia.
Oh wow!
Back in the day, and she knew about Tourette's, and she said to my mum one time, she's like, I don't want to be like offensive or making assumptions, but my friend does this and it looks like this because I've seen it in her son. So literally that was how I was diagnosed.
That's incredible. So if you didn't have that friend, maybe it would have taken a lot longer to actually get the diagnosis.
Literally, it's like everything happens for a reason sort of thing. And yeah, like I literally we reached out to them, got more info, and then I think we reached out to a neurologist and then we got diagnosed. So they knew straight away. But like even back then, man, the effort.
Yeah. And do you remember what it was like when you were 7, what some of your tics were, particularly that led to your GP thinking it was just a cough, which seems odd?
Yeah, so I literally, weirdly enough, have an ingrained memory of my first ever tic. Like, when something traumatizing or like happens in your childhood, I remember the feeling. It was like rising from my chest, coming up, and I had to make this sound. It was like, "Bo." I was like, "Bo." I had to make this like, "Bo," so "Bo." And it was like a popping sound, and I just had to explode. Girl that day was like, "Can you stop doing that?" Like another girl, like we were kids, and then I literally did not know what was happening. I was like, "What is happening?"
That would have been pretty scary as well at such a young age. Well, at any age, really.
Yeah, but just more shocking. Like what? Like, excuse my language, but what the fuck is happening?
So, like, once you were diagnosed, like, was there any sort of, did they discuss ways to, I guess, support or treat the symptoms of Tourette's?
I don't remember, but it was more keeping me happy and not stressed. And I ended up seeing psychologists, and then they like introduced me to medication. There's also, I think, CBT,
cognitive behavior therapy.
Yeah, so we did that, but let me tell you, it is hard.
I'm interested too, because I haven't really in my career treated anyone with Tourette's. People with tics, yes, but not Tourette syndrome. Like, what actually helped with I guess, managing it? And I guess my follow-up to that is therapy or strategies given to stop the tics or just sort of manage them?
Yeah, personally, I can't speak on everyone. Everyone's very different, but for me personally, CBT was not it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very hard.
Mm-hmm.
Heaps of training, and it's like suffocating nearly. Like, it is hard to train yourself. So, for example, just for the viewers listening, just for the listeners who don't know what CBT is, I'm pretty sure it's when like they give you another thing to do. Is that?
I guess there's a lot of layers to CBT. I guess the therapeutic concept is to try to stop the kind of chain from your thoughts and feelings to lead to the behaviors. So one of those strategies could be trying to direct you to do something different to sort of change that pathway, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So redirecting is a famous one. It's like, hey, instead of doing this, can you tap your foot instead? But it is so hard to learn, and because you're told, like, can you tap your foot? You're not going to want to, because so basically doing what you shouldn't do, kind of like that's for me.
Mm-hmm.
I've gone through a lot of different therapies. Like, I've seen different psychologists with different approaches. One did mindfulness, but it felt really gaslighty.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are so many different approaches, like breathing, mindfulness, but not everything works. Personally, for me, I think it's finding the right person.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, like, my sort of therapy is honestly talking to someone about it and debriefing and being in my best state of mind. So I'm currently doing kinesiology, and I can't speak on others, but I prefer natural, like the more natural route. So staying relaxed, acupuncture, kinesiology helps me, like, getting into that like relaxed zone.
That's really good to know, because I guess with anything, it's really what works for you. Like, often CBT is applied to so many things, but it doesn't always work for everybody, even though it's probably there's so much evidence that's been put into CBT, but it's got its limitations, and it's also not for everyone, as is lots of therapies. So it's great that you found something that really works for you.
Yeah, and obviously, like, I can't speak on everyone else too, but personally for me, like, after being on meds for so long, I came off them, and like, personally for me, that was the best decision I've made, because the side effects, it made like a zombie. Personally for me, like, there is no actual medicine just for Tourette. There's different ones, like blood pressure lowering ones, or you know, other things, but like, they're prescribed on a different case-to-case basis. So let's say you can take Ritalin for ADHD, but if you have Tourette's, you can't, because it's a stimulant and it'll set your tics off.
That's and is that's something that is an experience for yourself?
Yeah, so like, for example, for me, I could be given a script of Ritalin, but they said no because I have Tourette's, and he said that I can't do that. So it's very case to case. So when
for sure.
Like, when people ask, like, is there a cure? Like, it's offensive, you know?
Yeah,
like, not that simple.
And I guess that leads to my next question, though, around like wanting to cure something. Like, is the end goal for your therapy and for any kind of like treatment to stop tics, or is it more to help you manage and have the best quality of life, having sort of space for those tics to be there but not impact you as much?
Honestly, it's management. Like, for me, in my kinesiology, I'm literally exploring my shame, like my deep-rooted shame on when I tic and why I feel embarrassed, and being okay with that. Like, that is my cure and therapy. A lot of people ask me, oh, have you like found a cure? Have you seen a doctor? And it offends me, because this is a lifelong thing, and I don't want to be depressing, and people can disagree with me, but I think the biggest cure is being okay that this is a lifelong thing.
100%.
Because you can't get rid of some things, and it's like, you have to sit with that. You know,
it feels like the cure is really for society to be more accepting of all the neurovariances that we have. So because it sounds like from your experience, the shame has been a really big thing to have to manage, and the embarrassment, which isn't your fault. It's more the context, the society that you're in.
Exactly. And I've been at, like, on holidays where no one's been hateful, or events and everyone's been lovely, and it makes me think, I'm like, I'm not the issue. Like, this ableism, that's the issue. So it's like, why are we questioning cures for disabilities when it's like, you know, you are the sickness in a way?
Yeah, 100%. So I guess we've kind of already touched on this, but what is it like navigating life with Tourette syndrome, and like what would you like people to know about life with Tourette?
I'm gonna just be real. It is hard. It is hard. It is tiring. It is draining. It hurts. And I want people to know it's not a stupid punchline. Like, if you have Tourette's, it's so okay for you to joke about it, in my opinion, because you're reclaiming it. But others who want to use it as a punchline, like, oh, Tourette's, that's so funny. Like, wish I had it. Like, it's seriously not funny. And I get all the time, like, you get to say that. That's so fun. If I had $1 for every time someone said that, I'd be rich.
That sounds like a very inappropriate thing to even say.
I know. Or like, oh,
think.
Like, you can swear all the time and get away with that's so cool. It's like romanticizing it in a way, like sensationalizing it. Like, we are so sick of it. It's not funny. It's very real, and it can wreck your life.
I guess out of that, you mentioned that you were discriminated against, and you made a TikTok video from that. What at first made you decide, I'm going to put this on social media, I want to share this? Like, what was going on at the time for you?
Yeah, so basically for me, like, I've always wanted to do it. I literally bought a camera. So back in the day, I literally bought a camera and I was vlogging. And I was watching the content today. I just finished high school and I was doing a Tourette tag. So it's always been like a dream of mine to be like a YouTuber or do some sort of video content. And literally that's how it started. But that video gave me the push. I was just like, this needs to be shown. This needs to be discussed and, like, brought to light. Like, we can't just sweep this under the rug. So ever since then, I, just started making content. But personally for me, like, YouTube, like, my ADHD could just not do it. And TikTok, it's like bite-sized and easy.
Yeah.
I do that. So, that's why I chose TikTok as a platform. I may do YouTube. I've always wanted to. But my laptop is literally out of storage.
and that's the problem with YouTube. It's not as easy to actually create. Not. TikTok, you pick up your phone, you can make a TikTok so quickly, but YouTube's a whole different ballgame, I feel.
Yeah. But just like seeing that there wasn't enough talk on it. Like, and being Asian too, like an Asian content creator. Like, I have people commenting and like, you're the first Asian I've seen with this. Because, like, you know, there are people of color out there, but, like, it's just not shown. And I was like, this is a niche I can go off. Being an Asian disabled content creator.
Yeah, I guess it's showing a side of that people don't usually see and that probably don't know much about of what it's like to be an Asian woman with Tourette syndrome as well. Yeah. So it sounds like it went gangbusters initially. Has that been all of the responses? Have you had a mixture of responses of your content?
Yeah, so this is surprising, but it started off way more positive than I thought. So I literally said to my therapist back in the day, I was like, I want to do this, but I feel like I'm going to cop so much hate. And people were being so nice. And I was like, oh my God, TikTok's not so scary after all. But then the hate came in. So this is so hurtful, but I had a literal subreddit made about me.
Oh God.
Where they literally made a subreddit about me on it's this terrible Reddit page. I'm not gonna mention it because no one's what. But they were analyzing how I was faking my tics, and it was just so hurtful. Like imagine strangers like analyzing, like watching the video you made and analyzing it.
That's disgusting. I can just imagine the sort of discourse that would have gone on would have just been so completely offensive. Well, how did that impact you? That would have been awful.
Oh, it hurt. it burns. And I was like reaching out to the moderators, getting them to delete it and stuff. But it's like sometimes some things are better left unknown. Like some things you shouldn't look at. And it's like, there will always be haters. And
yes, that's true.
It's like, I read this thing, it's like, if like, people who were successful in life, like they never had anyone just fully supporting them. Like people would have thought they were psycho or weird or, Yeah. But yeah. Touching on the other comments, there have been hateful comments, like heaps. I have had to block people. I've had to turn off comments, like just terrible comments. But I just like it makes you stronger and proves my point even more. Because you've seen the videos, like we're talking about ableism, and people just say it, and it just proves my point. So
I find that very interesting when the whole purpose of your content is to smash some of the stigma and to promote that this is real life with Tourette's and how to actually support someone with Tourette syndrome and some of the judgments that are made in trying to challenge that. And then when people take that and then use that to continue to perpetuate that ableism, it's like, well, thank you for just like making this even more of it, something that needs to be done.
Yeah, and it's like I know Tourette's creators get so much hate on TikTok. Like it sounds weird, but in a way misinterpreted and hated disability. Like there's not that same amount of sympathy. And I know creators who've had like Daily Mail stuff written about them, like unintentionally, and it's damaging because all these creators out there are creating awareness, and then they just get shot like in the foot.
It's awful, and Daily Mail is just
disgusting.
Yes. Yeah. What would your advice then for any content creators, particularly around the disability and ableism sort of space? How best do you handle the backlash and the hateful comments?
Advice for content creators who get hate, honestly, just do it. Be yourself. Don't let it stop you. Because if you're gonna and it sounds harsh, but if you're gonna be scared and let it stop you, you're never gonna do it. There will always be people hating you, no matter what. Like people, it's in our nature. People will always judge you, no matter what, and that's reality. And it's your choice if you want to give them the power to that gets you. And I know that's harsh, but I think that's reality. And also handling it self-care. Seriously, like no one talks about the toll content creation takes. Just like distance from it, turn your phone off, turn the notifications off. It's a lot, and no one talks about that toll.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Do you think it's better to engage with comments or just delete and block the comments?
Honestly, in the moment, I always engage, and like my humor is engaging with it. Like a lot of my videos lately, I'm replying to it because it's funny, but I know I shouldn't because it's like talking to a brick wall. But picking which ones, because some of them are so funny. But yeah, honestly, block, delete. Also, it's like you commenting hate helps my video get out there more.
Yeah, true. That's the other amusing thing about it. Because I'm only a dabbler in TikTok, but there has been a few things that have gone really far, and there's been a lot of hatred, and it is sort of at a point where you go, well, this is helpful for my engagement, but also a point where it's like, okay, this is impacting my day too much. I just need to like turn off notifications for a while or just turn off comments.
100%.
Thank you for that. Has there been some really positive things that have come from creating TikTok content?
Yeah, definitely. No, more so than I thought. Like when I had that hateful comment, I had like kids email me or people email me and be like, I don't know how hard it is for you to walk down the park swearing, but I support you.
Oh, that's lovely.
And I had a guy be like, you are the first girl I've written an email for, and I'll remember it. Like stuff like that. And I've had like another girl, halfway across the world, reach out to me, want to interview me for her school project.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Or random people like they'll reach out like a uni project. So it's so like I just can't believe it. Because in year 12 I did society and culture, and I was reaching out to people and I was like, can I write about you for my paper? So it feels
and
unreal.
And being on the other side of that.
Yeah, it's like so rewarding, and I've made friends online with Tourette's which is like so nice. And like I've had people message and be like you really like help me, like your content helps me. And I think that overweighs like the hate we were discussing.
Has it helped you in navigating your own life with Tourette's or managing your Tourette's?
Yeah, definitely. It's maybe more bold and comfortable and knowing I have that safe space. Because before that, I didn't have anyone to text, or I felt alone. But now I do. I'm like, I know I have friends I can message. And also, this sounds so weird, but there's been so many like work situations where I'll be at a first day at work and they'll be like, oh, I think I saw you somewhere. And then they'll be like, oh, I saw your video, and I won't even need to explain myself. And I kid you not, that is the most satisfying thing. Like my account does the explaining.
Yeah. It's a good way to be able to point someone towards something like, oh, you want to know more about me here.
Yeah, like, yo, here's the link. Don't ask.
You'll find all about it. That's awesome. I really think it's been one of the best things about social media, and how much it's, particularly, during COVID and when we've been so disconnected from so many people, was being able to have those platforms to find each other, people who get you, and it's built some really amazing communities.
100%.
So I just wanted to move on, if it's okay, to talk about some popular depictions of Tourette's in films.
No, it isn't.
When I was kind of researching about today, I was kind of thinking about some movies with Tourette Syndrome in there, and there's not many. The few that I've seen was Deuce, Bigalow, Male Gigolo. There was a film Motherless, Brooklyn, that came out a few years back, and way a long time ago, Matchstick Men, which I haven't bothered rewatching because that's not really the purpose of today. What were your sort of thoughts, and is there anything else that you've seen that you'd like to share around those depictions of Tourette's in like popular cinema?
Yeah, so I saw the one you linked. I watched it. I have never seen that. Let me tell you, I could not finish watching that.
Oh, really?
I had to close it. It was so uncomfortable. And yeah, the scene basically, just shows the guy ticking in there, having a stage meeting, and everyone's looking. So
just to clarify, that was a scene from the movie The Square, which is by, I can't remember his name now, but he's the director of Triangle of Sadness that came out last year, I think it was. So yeah, it was a scene.
So yeah, I watched that scene, and yeah, I could not finish it because it was so uncomfortable, but it was also very true. Like, I have been on the receiving, I've been that guy who everyone turns at as depicted in that movie scene when I'm in a quiet room, and it is a very real and uncomfortable experience. But for them to cover it in a humorous way and make fun of that, it really burns, and I could not watch it. Like, let me tell you, it brought up my PTSD.
Yeah, I'm sorry to have triggered you with that clip.
No, regarding Motherless, Brooklyn, I actually watched that. I went to the cinema for it.
Oh, cool. What did you think of that one?
I think it was very good depiction. A lot of people were writing on it how they were happy about the depictions. I don't remember fully, but I remember it wasn't offensive and just they approached it like calmly. Like, it was ticking here and there, and it was fine.
From my memory, it didn't seem super offensive, although Edward Norton does not have Tourette syndrome, obviously.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, oh good. Yeah, that was the other offensive thing. It's like hire actors with Tourette's syndrome.
And I feel like that's common. I don't think there's been anything I've come across where an actor with Tourette's is actually involved in the creation. Although I don't know about The Square.
Yeah, or any disability, like Sia, like the autism thing. She got someone to act it out. It's like appropriation.
Yeah.
It's like, how, like white chicks, like how there's like blackface. Like it's a funny movie, but nowadays it would not be allowed due to context. But it's like, why is this still going on with disability?
Yeah, it's really not much different. Exactly.
And, yeah. Also, another thing I wanted to share was, this is really interesting, but one person said this to me recently that stuck up. She said every villain in a movie has like a scar, is fat, or is disabled.
Yes.
Yeah, it was like, That is so true. What is that ingraining into society?
Yes, we come across this a lot on this podcast, the villain trope and them having some sort of disability or being different in some way is so common and so frustrating. Definitely. One of the other films was Deuce Bigalow. I remember that was the first time I saw anything with Tourette's in it on screen. What was your experience? Have you seen Deuce Bigalow?
I haven't, but was that the scene in the car?
I think so. I actually think it was Amy Poehler.
Or the girl?
He's dating a bunch of different women, and they're all sort of women that struggle to find a partner. It's been a long time since I watched it, but that's my memory of it. And one of the women that he dates has Tourette Syndrome, and it's a very humorous portrayal of it.
Yeah, honestly, disgusting. Like, literally, as someone who had tics like that and that allowed, it is disgusting to see. Like, people making money and laughing at that, and it makes you insecure. You're like, if people are watching this all over the world laughing at this, what do they think of me?
Yeah, exactly. It was definitely played as a joke, which is just very problematic in so many ways.
Disgusting. Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Have you seen any positive, apart from Motherless Brooklyn not being too bad, have you seen anything positive or appropriate?
Honestly, no. Apart from, it's not a movie, but Lewis Capaldi.
Yes.
And Billy, like, they've come out about it and talk, like, that's some positive I've seen, and I love to see it.
Yes, that's brilliant. And that's not something that happens very often when, I feel like just neurological disorders or mental illness or disability in general, it's very still stigmatized to actually come out and talk about having it, being diagnosed with that. So that's good to see.
Yeah, and like, it's not surprising, but funnily enough, all the good depictions are like TikTok creators.
Yes.
That are saying their own story.
100%. Well, maybe we should move on to that. This is a good segue.
Editor,
tell me a little bit about I guess there's a very big thing in the media, or there has been in the last couple of years, around social media's influence on tics or tic disorders. And I'm just curious in what your thoughts around that have been, and what you think social media's role in it actually has been.
Yeah. So a lot of people touch on TikTok and it contributing to the rise of tics. TikTok as a whole, I call bullshit. TikTok cannot cause a neurological condition, and this is my take on it. I read a post about it that really resonated. It's this thing called medical gaslighting. So Tourette's is very well known with boys and research, with men in regard, and they're blaming TikTok and TikTok contributing to the rise of girls because there is no research. And they have nothing else to put it on. So that is my take. Second of all, I read this other article. This article said that we've literally just gone through a pandemic, a very stressful time. People were isolated in their houses. There is more likability of tics to increase during that side, like trauma and everything. We've just come out of a traumatizing pandemic. So yeah, we can't blame TikTok. We can't blame social media. However, I do think social media has helped people build that awareness. People like, there's been a rise in diagnosis, but what if people are just being more aware, having access? But also, another thing I want to touch on is it can lead to the romanticization and increase, like you've seen with like OCD and ADHD. People are like, Tourette's is cool, or ADHD is cool, being neurodivergent is cool.
No, what are your thoughts on that? Because I know that's happening with neurodivergence as a whole, with people seeing themselves a lot more on social media with autism and ADHD, and that leading them to pursue a diagnosis of those disorders, just as an example. But then there's a lot of narrative around people thinking it's cool and wanting to get a diagnosis because it's cool. And my response to that is always, it's very hard to get a diagnosis. So considering that to be trendy is really diminishing all the obstacles and barriers there are to actually having that diagnosis, and also that it costs a lot of money. And yeah, what are your thoughts on, like, there could be an element of that romanticization, as you say? Where do you think that kind of fits in that?
Yeah, regarding neurodivergence being cool, I'm on two sides. Heck yeah, it is cool. Like, we are cool. It is something you should embrace. But it's the same with cultural appropriation. Appreciation and appropriation is different, and that's what I feel. You can embrace, like, you know, being gay, and that is cool if you're gay. That's fine. But if you're not, you shouldn't step into that and take it from others who are actually gay or neurodivergent. It, like, they can pretend it's cool for a amount of time if they're not neurodivergent, but then the real stuff kicks in and they'll have to pay $300 in psychology fees, and yeah, they can see how, like, cool it is. Like, it's cool in an embracing way, but, like, you know, navigating the NDAS and getting ripped off and paying all this medical stuff is not cool.
As well as just, you know, there's lots of coolness to being neurodivergent, but it also has a real life impact on not the actual necessarily the diagnosis and the way that society accepts those conditions. So the actual impact to your well-being and functioning is real. So I think that dismisses that. People who think it's just trendy dismisses that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, like, it's only cool for a bit until, like, it hits you, and also it takes away from real life experiences. It's like some people can't even exit the house. How are you gonna make this a trend?
Yeah.
Make yourself, like, quirky.
Like you were saying, with the perception that tics have or Tourette's diagnoses have increased, and it's social media's fault, I guess, quote unquote. I did a little bit of my own deep dive into some research, which I sent to you.
Love it.
And it's just very interesting, because I feel like there's 2 or 3 different narratives that are out there online. There's social media's to blame, and you know, it was unfortunate that it was like some of the psychology blogs that were like, this is happening, all these girls are getting Tourette's and it's social media, and they're just that's triggering them. And it's like, come on. And then there's also some research that's looked into it a little bit more deeply in saying that, well, actually, it's more common that these girls are being, and mostly girls, that are actually having what we call a functional neurological disorder that is coming out in tics. And that isn't something that has just been created through social media, but it's more likely that because of everything that's been happening, like you say, COVID, that isolation, that stress, that has increased a recorded rise in that functional neurological disorder coming out in tics. And what is it? A functional neurological disorder, or FND, an illness with a neurological basis, but that comes out, and we're still sort of learning a lot more about it. It comes out in physical and physiological symptoms, and tics can be one of them. And when they actually looked at the presentation of some of the teenagers who were presenting with these, there was a lot of underlying mental illness, anxiety, stress, and functional symptoms that led to the tic disorders. So there's some reporting saying it's Tourette's, and there's some saying it's actually not Tourette's. It's more of there's tics, but it's not Tourette's syndrome. And also some research was saying, yes, there's a bit of a rise, but it's not an epidemic, when there's lots of sensationalist reporting saying that this is going to take all your children. It's happening everywhere. If they're on TikTok, watch out, they're going to get tics. But it's actually functional neurological disorders have been rising for decades, and this is just one way it might be expressed, and it's just the fact that people aren't that aware of them. So again, media likes to beat up things as well, which always frustrates me a lot.
Yeah, I'd agree with the last one, the second last one you said, the tics, because I've actually had girls tell me, like, I'll be like, I have Tourette's, and they'll literally be like, I don't have Tourette's, but can I tell you something? I have tics when I get cold, or I have tics that come out only when I'm stressed, and then it'll never happen again. I totally buy that third one. I can't comment on it, but that one makes the most sense to me, because people have twitching, and like with autism, people stim, and like I'm not autistic, but I stim. Like, I'll tap my foot. That is a stim. So, yeah, I think it's just coming out in a certain way. And the media fearmongers.
Yes.
Like,
they don't like social media anyway.
yeah, they'll be like, epidemic, TikTok ticks. And it makes mothers worried. And it's like, for what? And you know what? You're making stress. You're making what causes this.
Yeah, exactly. And I think particularly things with FND, we're still learning a lot more. We really didn't know that much about most mental illnesses or neurological conditions. And as you say, most of the studies that have happened for many things have been in men. So we actually are still learning a lot more about how our brain operates. So it's really not that huge a wild thing to come out of, particularly the times that we're in, when you actually look at it critically. But of course, media doesn't look at things critically. It really likes to be black and white about things.
Literally, and the whole thing on Tourette media is so disappointing because, so many people have written stuff about my page, Daily Mail included, and they will not ask my permission. But then they want to go on and write about how TikTok is causing this. So the media hates real life content creators talking about our own stuff, but then we'll rush to talk about our diagnosis. So it's like we can't even have the power, and then they want to take it off us and then make money off it. Like they're making more money than any TikTok creator.
100%. That's how they operate.
Yeah, and like I have a story on that.
Yes, please tell me.
I've had people from 7 News reach out. I've had people from Yahoo reach out. They will make an article and post it without my consent. And I'll be like, what the fuck is this? And then I'll be like, can you fix it up? And they're using my name and they didn't even ask any permission. It's like...
Are they just taking it from a post or from a video?
Yeah, so there was a article about me. I was lurking on the internet and it literally said it was like a Sydney woman swears uncontrollably and woman threatens to call police. This is on Daily Mail. And it's like, bro, you didn't even ask my permission to cover my story and you're making bank off it.
It feels like they're just scrolling through social media looking for something that they can turn into a cheap story to get clicks.
Yeah, and that's what journalists nowadays are doing. They're looking on social media for clips that they can cover. It's like lazy journalism.
It's so pathetic. You wanted to talk particularly about the segment on 60 Minutes. Was it TikTok Tourette's, I think it was called, that aired, I think it was last year. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
So I'm about to spill the tea in a very unhinged way.
Go for it.
So 60 Minutes reached out to me. 60 Minutes reached out to me and they wanted to do a segment on Tourette's. And the woman said, this really interests me and I want to spread awareness to it. And they wanted to cover my story about being a TikTok content creator with Tourette's. They released it and the article was TikTok chick.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't even watched it. But let me tell you, when I saw that, I'm like, blessing in disguise that I turned it down.
What made you turn it down? What were your thoughts?
I had trust issues. Past stuff had happened with media
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't trust.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't support 60 Minutes. They sensationalize and dramatize. And it was like I was not risking being on live national TV
Mm-hmm.
with my face sensationalized. And to spill the tea, guys, they don't pay you. They're a big broadcasting episode like that. And they don't pay you. It's free work to be risked, to be like thrown on the bus. Can you believe that?
That's so disappointing because it's not just, airing your face out there. It's also on very mainstream, low-rung media. So whatever happens to you post that is, I'm sure you would get a lot of exposure, but you would also get a lot of bullying as just generally what happens. So that's really disappointing that you don't even get some payment out of it.
Yeah. And it's like so many people, on the Tourette Association of Australia, they talk and they're like, I'm so upset about how I've been portrayed on this channel.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is that thing with media and trust issues. And it is a story. because Tourette's is interesting. It's different and it looks weird, like, to people who don't understand. So, of course, it brings in views and people know that.
When I was watching that, there was also a couple of Tourette stories that 60 Minute aired. And like, my parents always watch 60 Minutes on a Sunday night. So whatever they was showing, I would end up catching. And I remember a lot of significant mental illness was portrayed on 60 Minutes in very sensationalizing ways. One of my first memories was of eating disorders. There was a young lady who they sort of tracked to her experience with a very severe eating disorder. And that was like, how awful this person is, she won't eat. And there was a couple of episodes on someone with Tourette's who they quote unquote said, this is the person with the worst case of Tourette's in the world. And it's all very demonizing. She had very, very significant tics that caused quite a bit of self-harm. And, there's so much distressing video footage of it. And it was just, gratuitous. And she tried to get, I think it was transcranial stimulation to try and reduce the tics, which didn't, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you feel about it, wasn't able to be maintained because of infections, pretty significant.
Yeah.
But then they caught up with her much later. She's very living a very functional life. She's got a partner.
Yeah.
Still engages in tics, but it is doing quite well in life. And it was, obviously a very big journey of this person, but just being in the spotlight for so long just to create sensationalist media. Like, it's nice that we see her with Tourette's having a very full life and having sort of made space for the Tourette's rather than trying to cure it, which is what we want to see. But all the stuff leading up to it was really, really gross.
Yeah, it's like guilt people have to carry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seeing your old self, and it's hard. And like, TV can cover you, but they're not going to offer you support.
And that's there forever too. She's going to always have that media on the internet for the rest of her life. That's really uncomfortable.
Exactly. Like, it's like spotlight on you. And yeah, there's no editing control. Like, I was like, do we get to see a cut before it's aired? And they're like, no, the first thing is it's aired. So the first time you open up the TV, it's aired. And that is so much. And same with the singing shows. It's like, you don't audition
and
well.
Reality show, really? Yeah.
It's disgusting. Yeah. So anyone listening, do not trust the media. Do not trust what you see. They're all owned by the same people. Like, it's rigged. Like, do not formulate your own opinions on your own research and listen to disabled people.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So you didn't watch the final episode, but you kind of know what it was portraying. Did you have people reaching out to tell you what they were disappointed in about it?
Yeah, some people liked it. Like, they're like, oh, there were good bits, but I just never. Mainly because my ADHD, I can't watch stuff. So yeah, and I just didn't want to give it energy.
Fair.
I will one day, because I'll be, oh, you know what, blessing in disguise, and I want to see what bullet I dodge. But I don't know, I'm scared, and I would rather not fill up my head.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I guess I did watch it in preparation for today, and I was expecting a little bit worse, to be honest, because I am with you. I don't love 60 Minutes. But there was definitely a big focus on social media being a culprit. The person they interviewed, the psychiatrist they interviewed, wasn't too bad. Like, he was kind of saying, this isn't social media's fault, but maybe it's played a role. So that was a better message than we're blaming social media. But I think he definitely could have done a little bit more in actually explaining, correlation and causation are two different things. And what about all these other things that have been going on in the last couple of years?
Yeah. Like, I am glad it wasn't as bad, but even just the title TikTok tics to draw in that viewer to
clickbait.
Then be like, it's not that bad. Yeah, like you said, it's entirely clickbait.
Yep, and there's so much, like, Daily Mail is so good at that. Like we were saying, it's really media, I think, that we need to blame for this being seen as an epidemic rather than the actual what's actually happening as well, for sure.
Yeah, it's like, why are you focusing on this? Like, why don't you focus on the actual epidemics?
Yeah, and there's been some nice like there's been some awful articles, but there's been a nice article of how it was by The Verge who was talking about if this is what's going on and we're seeing a little bit of a peak, then why don't we talk about the mental health of our teenagers at this time? Like, let's not blame TikTok. The distress that's led to, you know, a decline in functioning or whatever is already there. So let's focus on that. And I'll link that one because I quite liked that article. We need to actually look at what's going wrong in society that, you know, these kind of neurological or functional neurological disorders are popping up a bit more commonly. So I was going to ask you as well, you mentioned that you were on an episode of a YouTube series called Dating Differently.
Yes. So we're going to spill even more tea tonight.
Love the tea.
So this UK production company reached out to me called Dating Different, and they wanted to do a blind date with Tourette's. And I saw their coverage. It was really good on past Tourette stuff. So I was like, hey, this is cool and the pay is good. So,
you got paid this time. That's a win.
Yeah, I did it. And yeah, it went fine. The filming went beautifully. And I was really happy. I felt like I portrayed my story very well. And then what happened was, after that day of filming, I received the cuts. And I was so excited to show my friends. We were going to do a viewing party. And I spent the whole night feeling like shit because the cuts were so offensive. And that I was surprised. Like, the original cuts, it was every tick I had, they put like do music over the top of it.
Oh my God, that's awful.
And they zoomed up on my face. And then zoom up on my face every tick. And they sent her this whole ass paragraph of 10 things, like 10 points, being like, you need to remove this, remove that. That is not okay and hurtful to me because you're sensationalizing it. And literally re-traumatize myself and explain why it was not okay.
Did they really have any insight into why that was a problem?
I don't know if they had insight into why the edits were offensive, but the fact they didn't view it as offensive.
Yeah, because they were just happy to send it to you. And then,
Yeah, and mind you, the editor and all the people on board of that were young. They were around my age, and it just felt like a betrayal. Young people doing that. And yeah, I had to run them through why it was not okay, and they had to remove the music and the zooms and the sensationalize. But yeah, like, I just wanted to bring that up because don't trust what you see. It may look good right now, but you don't know what people went through to get it to where it was.
And the fact that you had to advocate for yourself as the subject in the film, and okay, like, you have Tourette's and you're in the video, so you know you're representing someone with Tourette's. But if they're doing good justice, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, then really they could have run through with someone from the Tourette's community to make sure they were doing it the right justice, rather than making you have to go through it and feel really awful about yourself before sending that to you.
Yeah, and genuinely, like, yeah, it's just a traumatization. And there were so many beautiful points they could have put in that I raised, but they didn't.
What were some of those points? Because I'm obviously link the video in the episode notes, but what would you have liked to share more from that video?
We were just like talking about Tourette's as a whole, stuff like that, and yeah, just like how it was being diagnosed and stuff. But like, they did include it in the end, but it was just the music and the dramatizing. And I did say more about dating as someone with Tourette's. I did touch on that more, but they didn't include that.
You do say that on the show, in that it's a good screener. So if someone doesn't accept you off the bat once they discover you have Tourette's, then like, you don't have to bother wasting your time with them. Did you, when you looked at the previous videos, they hadn't used those kind of noises that audio that they did?
Yeah, the reporting was really nice. They have a whole dating thing on different disabilities, and it was really respectful. So that was why I trusted them. But yeah, got that tarnished.
That's such a shame. It's really good to know that they took on board your feedback. Did they apologize at all?
No, they just sent it back and was like, here's the edits.
Right.
And then like, I didn't even want it to be posted by then, but they got you stuck in a contract and you'd already been paid. And it's such a mess. And another thing too is, they took pictures of me, like, for the cover, and it's like, you ask the photographer and they can't even give it.
Oh, really? They couldn't give you the photos?
No, so it's like gatekeeping. Like, I get licensing and stuff, but it's like, it's my face and I can't even have photos.
Yeah. Oh, that's disappointing. I wonder what went wrong, given their previous media was quite respectful. I wonder if what they were going with that, or what they thought they were going to achieve, because that's really disappointing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did you end up seeing the girl again that you had the date with?
Funnily enough, I actually saw her at an event, but like, I'm not going to get into too much, but we actually had our own chat about how we thought the whole thing was bullshit.
Oh, really? Or at least you bonded over that experience in some way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess for anyone with Tourette's, or anyone with a neurological condition that sometimes they struggle with, or that they have to share with people, what's some advice you might give someone in the dating world?
I'm still learning this myself with dating or being social, but tell them from the beginning, like, I know it hurts and is annoying, but rip the Band-Aid off, because I get stuck in this vicious cycle where I don't tell people and then they figure, but then I know they figured, but then I haven't told them. And it's like, I know you figured, but I have Tourette's. So tell them from the beginning, and if they can't accept you for who you are, get rid of them, because like, that's the only closure you need.
Yep.
And like, people struggle to find friends, or they're like insecure and whatever, which sucks, but it's like, just know there are people out there for you, and to not give up. Like, sometimes you feel lonely, but there will always be someone for you out there, and there will always be friends, the right people that get it. If not now, later.
Yeah, I love that message, and I love that, if they're not accepting you, just don't waste your time. I think that's a really good lesson to learn.
Yeah, and like, don't be around anyone that makes you feel like you need to suppress. Like, surround yourself with beautiful, understanding people who will have your back if anything goes wrong with you.
Yeah, wonderful. And what about someone who is dating someone with Tourette's, or has discovered that the person they're going on a date with has Tourette's? What is some advice you would give them?
Yeah, be open-minded. Don't feel scared to ask questions. We love it when people ask questions, like when they say, how can I support you with your tics, or how would you like me to react? That is the best thing, rather than you being offensive because you didn't ask.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just ask us and be respectful. Like, treat us like a human. We're just the same. Like, just be kind.
Yeah.
And no offense, it's common sense, but also do your own research, because sometimes we're tired of explaining, and we love when people are educated and we don't need to explain. That is the biggest satisfaction.
Really good advice. When you say do your own research, what would you suggest they actually engage with for that research, given what we know about Daily Mail, etc.?
Check your sources, sister. Watch TikTok. Like, it's good, but don't be like, oh my God, I follow this Tourette's person. Like, it's good, but if it's like, I just watch TikTok to educate, it's kind of cringe. Go above and beyond TikTok. There are amazing sources on Google, like from Tourette's organizations, or like Tourette's bloggers. Check your sources. Don't just go to some Daily Mail thing and say you did your research. Read Tourette creators' content.
And that's always a message we are constantly banging on about here, is engage with content from, or, whether it's media, whether it's film, or whether it's, research, books, from lived experience, people with lived experience, people who are experiencing what you're engaging with.
100%.
And I think that comes with some of the research too, because a couple of the better articles that also was sort of rebutting some of the more negative depictions of the TikTok tics, quote unquote. One of the articles in particular was saying, we call on scientists and individuals with lived experience to develop research and approaches that accommodate the society that patients live in. And I think that's a problem with research in general, is it's often high profile, or, just researchers who don't have that lived experience who are making these calls and doing this research. So that's a really good, important thing to touch on is let's talk to people with lived experience.
Yeah, like everyone wants to talk to a neurologist because it's cool or I trust him, but he can only do as many years of studying. I live with this every day. He doesn't know how a tick feels. It's like, go talk to the families. Go talk, like, amplify the voices of people with disability, because that is the most real. They don't have any gain from it. There's no finances involved. It's just real. It's candid.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like talk to a baker about how to bake bread. Don't ask a other person. Yeah, exactly. On that note too, I love the TikTok you created where you were explaining to some kids about your tics, and you expressed it as you explained it like you need to fart. You've got to let the fart out to feel like it needs to come out when it needs to come out. And that was such a beautiful conversation that you had with those kids. That is so sweet. Like, you remembered that. That makes me so happy.
It was so good.
I literally I made it up on the spot. I was like, how can I make this funny and engaging and less scientific? Because I use the sneeze analogy with like everyone, but like fart just was funny. And he's like, oh, I fart all the time. So thank you for that. Is so sweet. Made my day.
And I also love that, like, there was, I think, one particular kid who was saying, you shouldn't make fun of it or pretend because that's not fair on people who are actually experiencing it. It was like, that's it right there.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, Rex and fathers, and I still work with kids, and they're so rewarding. Like, one girl today, she's like, oh, I used to live in Japan, and a girl I knew had it. And another girl goes, oh, my dad has it. He always swears at my mum, but he can't control it. And then I have a girl like advocating for me. She's like, oh, by the way, she swears, but don't make fun of her.
That's
like,
so sweet.
Kid over adults.
Yeah, and I think that's so true. Like, kids just get it. Like, they'll be curious and they'll question. Like, my 3-year-old is definitely wants to ask a lot of questions to get something. But once you get it, they're like, okay, I'm all right now. I'm fine with that. I'll move on. And it's something that adults need to practice doing a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, because adults, when you meet, they're like suss you out and they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm talking to this person. Kids are like, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Like, I say this to them, kids and dogs even. Like, literally, let me tell you, dogs are so understanding. The first tick, they respond, but they have this innate thing about dogs. They get it straight away. After the second tick, they don't get scared. Like, animals know, like, when I'm petting them.
Yeah, I have that sort of sense that, that sense of safety. Yeah, that's so good. Well, thank you so much for talking. It was really awesome to get your perspective on what not just Tourette's in media in general, but on what it's like to be a content creator in this space, and also to have your content demonized as a contributor to tics, which hopefully we've collectively debunked. I guess what would be your sort of final message for particularly the depiction of Tourette's in media?
Watch stuff straight from creators. Check your sources. Media has a long way to go. Media needs to employ people with disabilities for their acts and stop trying to make money off of disabilities. And a lot of more consent and ethics needs to be put into media. I think it's going well, like, it's improving, but it has a long way to go, and we will be here for it. Like, we will look back. I have faith we will look back on this in 10 years and be like, hey, we were talking about this now, but look at how we've been. Same with the gay rights movement. Same with anything. It's slow, but we will get there. Like, I have hope. People are awakening and, like, spreading.
I love that you have hope, because I feel like sometimes, particularly when you're in the thick of it as you are, it must be really hard to continue with that hope, because it sometimes feels like you're constantly on the bicycle trying to pedal furiously to promote more ethical journalism, etc.
Yeah, 100%. But also, if you're a journalist or know anyone in journalism and you're listening to this, like, I hope this brings up some discussion or like reflection. It's like, be a good journalist, please.
Do your job well, please.
Like, last words to if you're going to go into a media job, please know your stuff goes a long way. Like, know the ripple effects and don't undermine the power of media.
Particularly for very impressionable populations. It has that very long-term effect on how someone perceives something, such as Tourette's. Yeah.
Literally. Just another quick example before we leave is with the shitty dating different thing that I hated. 3 strangers recognized me from that.
Oh, wow.
So I think for anyone listening, that should illustrate the extent of media. It was just one YouTube video. Like,
yeah, you don't know how far something's going to go. And once it's out there, it's out there.
Yeah. And just be kind.
Yeah, definitely. Be kind. Have compassion, I think, is a good one.
Yeah.
So, one, how can people, what's your handles for TikTok? How can they access your content? Do you have Instagram, etc.?
Yeah, so my TikTok is Meow Mons, like meow cat and Mons. And my Instagram is Ticks with Mons. Sorry, Ticks with Mon without an S. Also, can I add one last thing to the last thing you wish people wanted to know?
Yes, absolutely.
I want to add, don't take stuff at face value. So with my Tourette's, I only tend to show the happy side, like me roller skating, but I don't show the tick attacks. So yeah, just don't take stuff you see at face value. Someone could be really struggling but not show it.
I think a good message with that too is just because someone puts content online doesn't mean they owe you the more distressing side of your life, or they don't. I think people can have this sort of parasocial relationship with particularly TikTok and any kind of creator online. So I guess it's also, you can portray whatever you feel comfortable portraying, and that doesn't necessarily need to be all the other different sides of your life and life with any condition.
Yeah, like one guy I know has pinned on his account his diagnosis letter. Like, I would never do that, each to their own, but it's like so hurtful. He needs to feel the need to do that.
Yeah. People think that they have the power to request your personal documents to prove whatever's going on for you. That's really fucked up, to be honest.
Literally.
But it sounds like you are a very resilient person in knowing how to manage some of those expectations.
I try.
Well, thank you so much, Mon. I've had such an interesting conversation with you, and thank you for just sharing your story. And I really hope that sometime in the future we get a good depiction, an accurate, helpful depiction of Tourette's in the media, but I think we're yet to find one.
Yes, we'll see. We'll hang in there. Hang in there, guys.
This podcast is not designed to be therapeutic, prescriptive, or constitute a formal diagnosis for any listener. For a longer version of this disclaimer, please check the episode notes on your podcast app.